The black magic cult's trap. Akechi had proven successful in locating the missing vases, gaining the respect of some of the Academy's less well-mannered students, to the surprise of all, but none more so than himself. And though gradual, he and Kobayashi found themselves the recipients of more and more investigative work as time passed. As a result, he would often need to leave classes early to see to his clients' cases.
My apologies, Mr. Mackenzie. You have my word that we will make up for the class time we miss at a later date via supplementary coursework.
Fortunately, students unable to attend lectures due to work outside the academy was not an uncommon issue, and classes wherein one could cover missed topics were often held for just such a reason. Most students would grasp at any excuse they could to avoid extra time in class, but Akechi isn't most students. He really is a hard worker.
What? Me too? But then I won't have any time for my inventions!
Kobayashi, whilst time is limited, it is surprising just how much of it can be found if one has desire enough. Besides, I cannot overstate the importance of Mr. Mackenzie's lectures. It's vital to one's education to make up for any class time lost. And now that you understand that, we must be off.
Who said I understood any of that? Honestly, it's because you always try to shoulder every burden alone that your communication skills never improve.
Good luck, Akechi. I wish you well.
Thank you. I shall endeavor to do what I can.
I swear, she may be the only one who truly understands you.
Mr. Mackenzie, if you will excuse us.
Stop! Are you ignoring me?
Just hush up and come along.
Good morning, Mr. Mackenzie, by the way.
Take care. And I would be most appreciative if the two of you could be a bit quieter and more cooperative with one another.
Poor Mr. Mackenzie. The two of them left the classroom, Akechi half dragging Kobayashi out behind him.
I'm amazed those two haven't tired of that little charade. It plays out nearly every time they need to leave class early.
I suppose you're right. Still, I'm glad they get along well.
They've been pushing themselves hard lately. They must be tending to outside jobs almost every day. Indeed, though I cannot help but feel they're spreading themselves thin. Might that be your way of expressing a mild panic, Holmes? Me? Panic? Why should I have need? In the unlikely case it escapes your notice, Akechi's marks in class are second only to yours, and his performance has only improved with time. And now he's seeing no shortage of work. It might be your cozy position at the top of the class is at last being challenged. He tends to his business in the way he deems best, as do I. I haven't the time to ponder such nonsense. Nonsense? Were you also aware that Akechi and Kobayashi opened their own detective agency? You're their top competitor.
Oh, hello, Lupin.
Watson, from all I've heard, they haven't started their own agency. They were hired on by one.
What? Really?
The owner heard of their reputation and invited the two to come and work for him.
Is this true, Miss Whiteley?
Why are you asking me? Oh, apparently I know. It is. The owner's name is Dehar, and from what Akechi has told me, he seems a very kindly person. He and Kobayashi left with the chance, of course, as they hadn't many opportunities to venture outside the academy before. My thoughts drifted back to the look of happiness in Akechi's face when he broke the news to me.
Ahem. If it's all the same with you, I should like to resume this class.
Poor Mr. Mackenzie. No respect. The two have been fully engaged by their work for some time now, but this week especially seemed busier than most. I pray they don't end up working themselves to the bone.
Miss Whiteley, are you listening?
Kobayashi did tell me the agency's address. Perhaps I ought to pay them a visit myself. I was thinking that in my head, wasn't I? Marple? Marple? Do you want to admit something to me, Marple?
Oh, why not take something sweet with you then? Rare is the person who would turn down refreshments.
Oh, I think that's a fine idea. Wait, Marple! How did you know what I was thinking? Yeah, exactly.
Such a silly question. Your face is an open book, dear. Mr. Mackenzie, the problem at hand has been addressed, so please do continue with the lesson.
Very well.
Kobayashi's directions placed the office they were working from north of the Thames, looking out onto the street of Bishopsgate. It should be nearby now. Reassuring Pendleton that a detective must find her way by wit and intuition, and leaping from the carriage without listening to a word he said seemed perfectly sensible at the time. I'm half expecting fog at this point, Emily. I must confess now that I may have benefited from listening. He said something about all the buildings in this area looking the same. Kobayashi had said the building in which their office was located was built of gray stone with flowers planted in front. And now that I was near, that same description, I learned, was apt for each building I passed. Lovely! Just lovely. If only I kept the exact address with me. I sighed, puffing my lips as I looked down at the basket in my hands. Well then, I shall have to go into one of the nearby shops and ask someone. I granted myself the vigor to resume my search. Unfortunately, I neglected to pay heed to the ground before me. Ah! My foot caught on a crack in the ground. I lurched forwards. In that instant, I decided, forget the sweets, girl. Protect yourself. I don't know why that was a choice, but okay. Expecting a frightful fall, I braced myself for impact. Yet before I could hit the ground, I felt someone catch me. Oh, please be my boy. Oh, yay! And a picture, too. Happy days. Akechi! This music. It was Akechi who stopped my fall, his expression upon seeing me a mix of surprise and bewilderment.
Are you alright? You aren't hurt, are you?
Hold on. Oh. He's going for the breasts again. Look out. Not in the least. But what are you doing here?
Well, I happened to see you, thought to say hello, and then went to catch you as you stumbled.
Oh, I see. Thanks to Akechi's timely intervention, I was spared a twisted ankle or even a mild cut or bruise. Is it because I let the sweets fall to the ground? Thank you, Akechi.
Anyone would do as I did. I'm simply glad you weren't injured.
A look of genuine relief washed over Akechi. It's one of the few times I've seen him so vulnerable. Whenever I drew close to Akechi, he would always pull away from me. That's why you gotta surprise attack him. Perhaps due to that, I found it impossible to feel calm with him so close. I could feel his hands supporting me. Not so forceful as to cause me discomfort, but not so light of hand that I feared slipping from his grasp. I could tell that my well-being was foremost amongst his concerns, and my face grew ever flushed when that realization came to me. Ah, so you could tell by the way I was falling that I was also putting my well-being amongst my topmost concerns and not the sweets. That's why he loves me. Oh, we're just like staring at him being like, wow, we're so close, and he's so slender, and he's so strong, and he's got a big sword, and he's got... How long before Kobayashi comes out is like, whoa, go, Akechi! Oh, I'm sorry. I will behave now. I'm good. He's more slender with build than most of our schoolmates, but he's so strong. Is it thanks to his training?
Is something the matter?
Oh, no. I was just noticing that you're actually very built. I mean, you dashed in and caught me with such ease.
Dashed?
He paused, apparently lost in thought for a short while, until he too realized this predicament.
I'm...
No sooner had he opened his mouth than his face flushed a deep red that was surely equal to mine.
I acted without forethought. Lest you misunderstand, I wouldn't do this for just any woman. I did it because it was you.
Wow. Huh?
But never mind that. I'm just glad you're all right.
Saying that, he quickly let go of me. What did he mean by that?
Ahem. Now, Miss Whiteley, might I ask what brought you to this area? You seem lost.
Well... My hands tightened around the handle of the basket I still carried. You see? Dehar, huh? Another guy with a face. Alright.
Well, thank you very much. I wasn't expecting you to have brought enough for myself as well. While I cannot claim to have a refined taste for sweets, this tart is truly exceptional. I can fairly say that I'll not want to eat them from anywhere else now.
Thank you, Dehar. Once I had arrived at the office, Dehar and Kobayashi insisted that I join them for tea, and I happily obliged.
These two have done impeccable work for me, so I must insist they rest every now and then.
I don't believe I've earned a rest quite yet.
Akechi seemed somewhat disquieted.
There seems to be some rather disturbing rumors floating around the city of late. Kidnappings, they say.
Is this the one about the kidnapper pretending to be a magician?
A magician?
The very same. This is nothing more than hearsay, but from what I've heard...
Akechi began to relate to me the rumors circulating in London. The kidnapper is supposedly a man clad in a black cloak. Evidence suggests him to be gathering up poor children with nowhere else to go.
My, you look as though you've nothing to do. Would you care for some entertainment?
He gestures, tracing a circle in the air. Then, as though conjured from empty space, coins begin to pour to the ground below. No doubt it is a simple act of legerdemain, but it's more than enough to capture the children's fancy. Then the real trick begins.
Well, what did you think? Come with me and I can take you to a place far more magical than here. And there are so many more spectacular things I could show you. Sights to boggle the mind and stir the imagination. What do you say?
According to the stories, he has used this method to gather great crowds of children, all at once, then taking them away with him.
I still think the story itself is rubbish. The way his appearance is described changes from time to time, you see. In some versions, he was described as appearing with a flashy orange and black tiger mask.
Others said he has fangs like a vampire instead.
A tiger mask and vampire fangs? Could someone that outrageous truly exist? I mean, if they worked with the circus, sure.
Still, even if the stories are real, and I'm not fully certain one way or the other at this point, I cannot work out what exactly the criminal is trying to accomplish. Unlike the kidnapper we apprehended before, this time the perpetrator is targeting poor children. Money isn't what he's after. But if not money, then what?
An important question, and no immediate answer comes to mind. Akechi's mind had already begun plumbing the depths of the rumors anew, face locked in consternation until he was interrupted.
Akechi? If you sit there pondering cases, you'll surely dull the taste of the tarts Miss Whiteley has so considerately brought for us.
Dehar had himself steeped a pot of tea for everyone.
See? Dehar knows how to appreciate food. Unlike a certain madman who knows not the power of sweets.
Was that truly necessary? I'm simply trying to give a bit of serious consideration to the culprit's motives.
There is plenty of time for pondering after your tea. Come along. Drink up before it goes cold.
Very well. I shall.
Giving in to Dehar's gentle prodding, Akechi reached for a tart and his cup of tea.
Akechi! How can you eat something this delicious with the very same face? Liven up! Smile! It won't kill you.
However it may look to you, I am thoroughly enjoying my food.
Could have fooled me. You never show much interest in food.
Really? I do think he's enjoying it.
Huh? Do you know something I don't?
When we first met back at the Port of London, Akechi showed no interest in the tart I offered to the two of you, but took one today without any fuss.
Did I? I hadn't noticed.
I wasn't sure whether it was his enjoyment of the tart or because he was reminiscing about the past, but Akechi's lips curled into a soft smile.
What? Alert the press! Akechi looks happy! No, it could be a trick of the light. I've only ever seen this look when he's eating his favorite sashimi, or enjoying a cup of matcha.
Sashimi?
A bizarre Japanese delicacy in which they consume thinly sliced raw fish. I never heard of it until Akechi told me.
I admit I expected the eating of raw fish would be considered somewhat unusual here, but not bizarre.
No need to cast one more worry on the pile, Akechi. There's always fish and chips, and that's just delicious!
I couldn't agree with you more. Dehar certainly hit the mark. Eating raw fish was decidedly not a widespread concept in England. As our tea time wound to an end, Dehar informed us that he had business that needed tending to, and we saw him off. After that, I happened to recall something. As curious as I am about how this sashimi tastes, there is something else that piques my interest. I have wondered for a while, but just what kind of place is your home?
Our home? Japan?
Yes. I've wanted to know more about it for a long while now. About what sorts of things one can find there, what manner of people live there. Akechi cast a sidelong glance at Kobayashi, who was availing himself of another of my tarts before answering. Another picture?
To start, I cannot neglect to mention that Japanese women take a great deal of care in how they present themselves. Behavior is ever under the utmost scrutiny.
I realized I'd begun to lean forwards in my chair and slowly worked to straighten my own posture. Perhaps he wouldn't notice if I went about it slowly.
Yum! You see, when it comes to Japanese girls, everyone loves the Yamato Nadeshiko, the traditional beauty with long black hair. That's your type, Akechi, isn't it?
Oh no, I'm the opposite. No, wait, that's the opposite, no. A poised, long black-haired beauty, my heart. Black-haired traditional beauties? I had to glance at my own hair for a moment. Blonde. Decidedly anything but traditional or beautiful. Emily, no!
I fail to see what relevance my tastes have to this. Besides, Kobayashi, it's a poor show of manners to talk whilst eating. Still, just as we might liken a beautiful woman to flowers in full blossom on the plains, we turn often to nature in Japan, revering and worshipping it. In spring, we watch the cherry blossoms bloom and fall. In the summer, we turn to the blue skies above. Autumn nights are filled with the cricket's trill, and winter blankets us with the snow's chill. So do we eagerly anticipate the return of spring. The Japanese find beauty in each of the 4 seasons, and give thanks for each of their blessings. And it is not simply towards nature that we feel gratitude. We feel obliged to our fellow man as well. Modesty and humility are considered virtues, both in women and men. We strive to understand the feelings of others without them having to be given voice. Such a feat is impossible without first showing consideration and concern for others. Being shown such consideration leads people to develop a sense of duty and compassion toward others, particularly those in need.
So you revere grand concepts, intangible things like nature and the seasons. I can tell you've internalized those virtues. As long as I've known you, you've been both dutiful and compassionate. I found myself recalling the graceful poise of Akechi's movements when he drew his katana.
I've a long way to go before I am worthy of such praise.
Akechi spoke softly, with a face that in its tenderness reminded me of the moment when he placed his hand upon Rick's head.
Japan is a wonderful country, no less so than English. To have been born and raised there is ever a source of pride to me.
And me!
Having finished his tart, Kobayashi was at last free to open his mouth once more.
Japan's full of amazing food, too. I'd love to treat you to an onigiri with fresh white rice, or a manaka. I'm sure you'd find them delicious.
I'd love to see Japan's Four Seasons one day. Are we gonna go to Japan in the epilogue? Guys? I'm just like, man, they went to a lot of trouble to draw, like, some Japanese style buildings just for, like, a little flashback thing. Are we gonna actually see it? Are we gonna see it in real life? In the epilogue? That'd be so cool. I'd love to try an onigiri and a manaka as well. It may just have been a trick of the mind, but in that moment I sensed a fleeting loneliness in Akechi.
Getting there is ludicrously difficult. The journey is hell if you're not good with boats. Once you're out on the ocean, there's nowhere to run.
I'd be alright, I'm sure. I don't get traveling sickness.
I'm happy you've developed an interest in Japan. However, I'm afraid I cannot recommend you actually visit.
Why not? I was taken aback at his interjection. He seems different now than he did just minutes ago.
Akechi?
If an immodest woman like you were to set foot there, I'm not sure anything good would come of it. For you or the citizens.
Immodest?
The people would take you to be a representation of all Angelsha's women, a problematic proposition at best. And I doubt you would be able to sit in the Seiza style, with your legs folded under yourself, backside resting on your heels.
Oh, I most assuredly can! How dare he? That wasn't his assumption to make. I can sit on my heels just fine, all day, every day.
You can? Have you tried before?
No, but I believe I could.
I think you may be underestimating the fortitude and willpower required for it. In fact, I'm certain you would give up within minutes. I can imagine it now. We will eventually need to return to Japan and give a report. In that report, however, I would stop short of describing you as representative of a typical British woman.
He's being much too critical of me. It reminded me of him when he rejected Rick's request to become his student. Yeah, exactly. Before I could spend another minute fretting over Akechi, however, a pertinent detail amongst what he said caught my attention. Wait, you'll need to go back?
Of course we will. We're not here on holiday.
I suppose he's right. They came here as exchange students, so it's perfectly sensible that they would return. Akechi spoke of their inevitable return to their homeland with complete indifference. To him, it was just one more stepping stone in his path. So why did it weigh upon me so heavily? That the two of them would one day leave was simple truth. A truth I didn't wish to face.
Our return will not be happening at any time soon, so you needn't look so forlorn at the subject.
He's right. If you start feeling lonely about something so far into the future, it'll make it doubly awful when we really do leave.
Kobayashi gave me a kind smile, but that only caused a lump in my throat to catch all the more. I suppose you're right. I need to make the most of the time we have together. There's so much more of England I still want to show you. The two of you are always working so hard. I truly hope you're rewarded for your dedication.
I appreciate the sentiment.
My mind played another trick on me. This time I thought I saw the light in his eyes quiver behind his spectacles. The three of us can't stay like this forever. But I wish... if wishes were fishes. Those two will return to Japan one day. And when they do, when will I be able to see them again? Well, it's possible that I shall never see them again. That's far, far too sad to think on. I wish they could stay here, that things could remain like this forever. It wouldn't be right, though, that I would try to hold the two of them captive to my own selfishness. The last thing I want is to bother them so. Even if I wish they could stay, I simply can't say it outright. I considered it rationally. It made sense from every angle of logic. It did! But my heart still ached thinking of that day when we would have to part. There's more to what he said. He doesn't want me to go to Japan. But Akechi has never been like this with me. He's admonished me, yes, but never in such an unfeeling way. What was it that caused so sudden a change? I could not find an answer. Oh man, that's how you leave it? Oh. Which narrator are we this time? Kobayashi heaved a sigh after Emily left the office to return to her mansion.
Huh. Akechi? Why did you say those things to her?
To what might you be referring?
Don't play dumb. Her, a poor example of a British woman. Don't know if I've ever heard that from you before. Then you tell her that you don't want her to visit Japan. Don't play dumb on that either. I know what you meant. It was terrible.
I was being fully truthful in my assertion that I am proud to be Japanese.
Akechi cannot meet Kobayashi's eyes.
You know as well as I that our culture's emphasis on tradition and decorum leads them to those from other countries in a negative light.
So if she were to visit Japan, she might face discrimination, and you want to prevent that from happening. Have I got it right?
You do.
Good God!
Kobayashi slumped his shoulders in disbelief and glared at the detective.
You may be right, but you really are a world-class blunderer when it comes to articulating your intent. Smart my foot.
And what is that supposed to mean?
What I mean is, why couldn't you tell her the truth? The truth is easy. Tell her that discrimination exists everywhere, and Japan is no exception. You could even warn her that she might be accosted in the street just by being a foreigner. I don't believe Emily to be so weak as to let something like that stop her.
I never implied that she's weak, if that's what you're saying.
But that's how she'll see it. You refuse to treat her as an equal. The more you say what you don't mean, the bigger the wall you build between you.
Akechi darkened upon hearing Kobayashi's chastisements.
Are you going to lie to me again? Tell me you felt nothing when she looked upset.
Suppose we still take my personal feelings into account. What ought I have said?
You ought to have comforted her.
Well, you seem to possess no shortage of ideas. Perhaps you would be far better at it than me.
Is that all you have to say? Really?
Kobayashi, just what point are you attempting to make?
It's obvious to anyone who isn't an idiot. If Emily were to visit Japan and was treated poorly, you would just have to be there to defend her. When she's sad, you just have to be by her side to comfort her. It may be awkward, but that's all she would need. Or so I thought, but seems I was mistaken. You don't have it in you to care for anyone but yourself. I realize that you're giving your utmost to have your ability recognized by your peers. And there is honor in that. But at the end of the day, saying unkind things you don't mean simply to push people out of the picture makes you guilty of the same mistakes as your master.
I would ask you not to bring him into this.
At the mention of his master, Akechi's left hand tightened round the sheath of his sword.
Saying unkind things you don't mean. There isn't a need to whitewash it. My master cut ties with me. And I don't care to continue this conversation, even with you.
Ugh. All right. If that's how you want it. Still, you'd best not push others away. Bottling up all your woes whilst they cut at you from within, never speaking of them to anyone. It isn't healthy.
Akechi remained silent, his face still as a stone. Kobayashi could only give another exasperated sigh.
Huh. That's just like you. As soon as you know you're in the wrong, you stop the conversation. Arguing won't help. I'll drop the subject for now.
How generous of you.
I do think on things a lot, you know. Far more than you give me credit. On that note, there was something I wanted to discuss with you, actually. About Dehar.
So you noticed then?
The mention of their employer caused Akechi's head to snap up.
I did, though likely not before you did.
Dehar has given us no shortage of work. We've investigated cases of infidelity, suspect company finance, missing pets, and performed numerous background checks on a variety of individuals.
But each time we conducted any such background check, the individuals under investigation seemed to summarily disappear. And just before disappearing, they are invariably cited at St. Spira Church.
Dehar is charitable with his monthly donations to the church also. Unnaturally charitable when you consider his personal means.
Right. A rather surprising trail to stumble upon when investigating one's own place of employment as an offshoot of one of those company finance cases.
I remember them talking about this in, I think it was Holmes' Route. Okay, so we are seeing that side of the game now. Interesting.
Then, every Tuesday and Friday evening, without exception, he always goes out. We don't know where, but there's only one way to find out. Knowing that, what should we do? You must have a reason for keeping this to yourself once you noticed.
The both of us owe Dehar a great debt. Casting aspersions upon someone to whom we owe so much would be a bitter repayment for his kindness.
Doubting someone who's done a great deal for us must be difficult for someone as dutiful as you. And I agree. He seems in every respect a good man. Still, I wouldn't rule out any possibility. Queer as it may sound coming from me to you, don't let your feelings get the better of you.
I understand that. I'm giving the matter serious thought. Of that I can assure you.
Are you? You've got a horrible habit of running off and trying to sort out the worst of it on your own. It worries me. It really does.
I'm sorry for your distress.
If you're sorry, then what stops you from at least attempting to change it? And whilst you're at it, stop being so hostile with Emily. The men of this country are kind to girls, so step up!
Akechi fell silent, his face bent into discomfort.